Hey everybody, this is Adam, and I am going to give you a recap on 2023 for the whole Thinking in 3D mini-series that I started a year ago. The idea of this mini-series is to use virtual reality and spatial computing or whatever, what have you, to format and organize human memory and like exploring the whole idea of memory palaces and that kind of thing. And so I did this as a whole bunch of rooms, one room for each month, kind of cascading for the year. And then I made it about halfway through the year with actually making an episode for each one, and then I kind of dropped the ball, partly because I still got a job I got to do, and then I also have been figuring out how to get this camper van like moving around, heated. I went to a couple conferences on cybernetics and like brain-computer interfaces, and then also I've got a couple updates on Circaevum and the 3D calendar app that I'm building for the Meta Quest headset and the Apple Vision Pro and all these spatial computing platforms. So I'll give you an update on all of that. Here we go. Alright, so you guys have seen this before. This is just that 3D structure for the year of 2023, halfway filled in, of course. Zooming back real quick to the idea of the memory palace, what this is all about is just that idea back in ancient Greece, before they had paper, and they're like, how do we store like a whole domain of knowledge in our mind? So they would use the structure of those buildings and the layout of those buildings to do that. So that's what I'm doing here. This is using the structure here, and we're zooming into the June episode. You can zoom back into the other ones in the last video if you want to see those. But basically, the idea for June was to build a memory palace for the login system for Circaevum, the calendar application, because I want users to have the experience of like, okay, this is a 3D application. I'm not just being shown just a login UI and that's it. I want to see the back end, like where the data's coming from, how it's being passed around different servers, and then what it actually looks like coming in. So what you're looking at here is the data coming in from Garmin, which is basically heart rate data in red and then sleep data in blue. And more on that kind of later. So I've gone through a couple iterations of this, tried to start making them more organized, and I actually put the code for each cube system like on the side of it now, so that it makes more sense. And I scaled the actual blocks to be the same size of the lines of code that they're representing, just so it kind of translates a little bit smoother between code to 3D representation. And so this is all just to make a visual representation of the database, of the backend, just to kind of give a kind of immersive experience of what a data application is really doing for the individual, and so that the individual understands what's happening with their data. I think that's really important, and so that's why I'm building this scene out, and also just so that it makes sense as I'm building it, how things work, because sometimes I go back to something a year later and I'm like, oh wait, how'd that do that? So now here's that login system kind of loaded into one of the side rooms of the main level for Circaevum. So this is the management room, the account management room. And so there's a separate row for each API that you configure. So on the left there is the Garmin integration. The middle is the main Circaevum login, and then the right is Google for now. Alright, and so here is the new updated circadian rhythm view. Basically one loop is one day, with midnight at the bottom, and this is a lot of data. So I'm going to reset it so that the data slowly loads in. You can can see right now those events that just loaded are calendar events, and then sleep, and then heart rate. And so this is just looking at one day as like a flattened out day, just so you can see, starting at the bottom, midnight, left side of that circle is 6 a.m. So that sleep data is in there and the different stages of sleep. And then progressing up to noon at the top, and then 6 p.m. on the right side. And then and then I can shift it so that instead of a flat circle, it's more of a spiral, whereas one day flows into the next. So then this is several days looking back. So I'm rewinding time right now, kind of like turning back the dial a little bit, and also compressing it so you can see a lot more days stacked up against each other. That way you can look at like sleep routine, things like that. Now this little orange event in the middle, that's a longer term event. That's being converted to like this. It's kind of closer to the middle, along with those other two, the blue and the teal, or the teal and the purple, magenta, to show longer term things. So anyways, here's things rotated. I wanted to just show you guys what's going on here. And if you think about it, like Earth is rotating, say that red arm that's sticking out, that's where you are. And as you're progressing, this is the way the Earth is moving and why like the sun comes up on the east, everything. So I kind of wanted to model this a lot after just the physics of how the Earth moves. So that's what you're looking at here. And so you're kind of seeing it progress in that way. And then I kind of kept it straight just so that you could look at the events like all in alignment with each other. But this is the long-term view of that now. So now we're zoomed out. We're looking at the annual view and like Earth's progression around the Earth. And so you can kind of go through. You see like the New Year's is kind of at the bottom there, and then we're going up into March. So it's kind of the progression of the long-term thing. And so those events, those like little different colored arcs are different events from Google Calendar that are just really long events that I created. So we'll make that long-term event. Like if it's longer than a day, it'll make that event on this arc on the outside, on the long-term view. And then that's kind of how you hold the context to where you are throughout the year, and you can zoom back into the daily view. So now getting back to that daily circadian rhythm kind of view one more time. You kind of get each day labeled right there, and that's the idea. You're looking at sleep, heart rate, and some of this is kind of misaligned, and I need to keep working to integrate more things. I like Steve Jobs' way of saying we're building bicycles for the mind. Basically, like using technology to build something that allows the human operation to work a lot nicer. So, speaking of Steve Jobs, I've been transitioning over to the Apple Vision Pro ecosystem. So yes, that means I bought a MacBook Pro, and I also pre-ordered the Apple Vision Pro, so I'm excited about that. But Unity, the game engine, has this library called Polyspatial, which is like what you can use to build Unity games and apps for the Vision Pro. The downside is that it doesn't support the line renderer yet. So I brought everything over here. It just shows like the vertices for each point in the line, and so there's a ton of stuff missing because like most of the Circaevum is line renderers. So I'm kind of like, well, that's $200 a month that isn't really going towards anything. So Unity, come on. I might end up just switching over to Swift though, because I got the MacBook Pro, and I'm like, well, if I can just build directly for the headset, then, and if I don't have to wait for libraries to kind of keep up, then I might do that. We'll see. I would really love to not have to rewrite this whole thing, but I might do that. We will see. Wow, if you're still watching this right now, why are you still doing that? Got Merlone here. We worked on the hackathon. I'm at the MIT hack right now, so I'm trying to wrap up the video. And so I'm like, all right, how do I just finish this up? We worked on a team a number of years ago, and then he's from Costa Rica, so I visited him a few times. Got a pretty cool spot there. But I'm getting ready to finish up the hackathon, or to start the hackathon, and I want to finish this video before it. So this is the end of the video. Goodbye.